to Zimbabwe's economic problems. And I go around Zimbabwe and I give this message, and most people are like, no, just give me the crispy. Hide it under the mattress. Okay? I want something that has value. And I'm going to give you, in response to that, I'm going to give you some history. Most people don't know how the US dollar became the global reserve currency. Now, before I do, I just want to say, I'm not anti-American. I love America. I think America's an amazing place. In fact, the people are incredible. America has pioneered amazing stuff in science, technology, media. It's been a real influencer, leader in the world that could be even described as one of the greatest nations on the planet in history. But we can't talk about American greatness without talking about the US dollar and its role in the world as a global reserve currency. Okay, so some background. In 1944, after World War II, the world was reeling from a very devastating war, and a lot of the gold had been sent to America because America wasn't so involved in the war and had been the beneficiary of a lot of the gold. Most of the nations met at a town in America called Bretton Woods, and there they agreed that instead of using gold, they would rather vault the gold in America and use US dollars, and the exchange rate between gold and US dollars was $15 an ounce. And it became known as the Bretton Woods system. Fast forward several years, a costly Vietnam War, lots of social expenditures, and lots of money printing taking place in America, France began to realize, amongst other nations, that maybe there was more money circulating around the world than there was gold vaulted in the vaults. So they went to America and said, well, thank you, can we give you back your dollars and we'll take our gold? And they started to do this, as a couple of other countries started to follow suit. And in 1971, in August of 1971, Richard Nixon, the President of America at the time, he temporarily closed the gold window. That was, formal speak to say, sorry, we're not going to give anyone back any gold for the dollars that you are holding. So there was a loss of confidence in the US dollar. And the dollar began to lose value at a rapid rate. 100% inflation that next year. So some very smart people in the United States, what did they do? They went to Saudi Arabia. Cars were becoming a thing at that stage. And they said to Saudi Arabia, it was the Cold War, Russia's a real threat. We will give you weapons. We'll set up military bases in the Middle East on one condition, on two conditions actually. One, you price all of your oil in dollars. And any profits that you make from the sale of your oil, you need to put back into America. Good deal. Saudi's got great protection, and America got effective oil underpin for their dollars. They negotiated it for most of the oil-producing regions, countries in the region, and the petrodollar system was established. Now you've got to understand how incredibly beneficial this was for America. You see, all the rest of us countries, if we wanted to get oil and cars were becoming a thing, we had to first get dollars. And so we, as nations across the world, began saving the reserves of the country in US dollars so that there would be enough money to buy oil when it was needed. Which meant that the United States had a ready market for its dollars. But not only that, there was huge profits from these oil companies and countries. And they fed that oil back, those dollars back into capital markets in the United States. For the last 50 years, this has caused the biggest boom in the United States. There's been so much capital swirling around. Every country needs to get its resources, land and minerals, labor, people toiling, working, and giving it to America. And America giving them some notes. And then those notes go back into capital markets in America. An example would be PayPal. You guys know PayPal? PayPal was a startup. It managed to raise from venture capitalists $100 million. That's a lot of money. Did you know that last year in America, there were 70 companies that raised $100 million? That's a lot of cash. Where does it all come from? Well, it comes from these countries around the world, all saving their savings, sending it to America, getting US dollars. Those US dollars are going to pay for oil countries, putting it back into America. And there's large amounts of capital flowing there. By contrast, how many $100 million deals has there ever been in, for startup companies in Zimbabwe? Any hands? Can't see any hands. I doubt very much whether there have been 70 deals for $100,000 in Zimbabwe last year. I doubt it. Maybe they have that. But that's 1,000 times less than 100 million. Lots of capital swirling around in America. So America's had this privileged status. It's been able to do things that no other country's been able to do. And here's the key thing. It has been funded by everyone else in the world. It was called by a French economist an exorbitant privilege. What you want to do is to get your currency as a reserve status for other people, and they will give you all of their goods and services in exchange. And you give them pieces of paper. And so fast forward to 2008, at the end of the hyperinflation period in Zimbabwe, and I'm studying the hyperinflation, and I see, okay, the Zim dollar at the time collapsed out of use, and what replaced it? Well, of course it was the US dollar. It just filled the void. But it didn't really fill the void. What happened, it didn't just like go like water into a tank. What happened is ordinary Zimbabweans had to give real goods and services, labor, assets, get them sent effectively to America. Offshore relatives, effectively working, sending the value to America, and getting what? Pieces of paper. Well, not they're very nice pieces of paper. Cotton.